welcome everyone to this next edition of the Mazza's Musings podcast. This week it's our 47th episode, but it's a first for us because this is the first one that we are live streaming. You are watching probably on Riverside. I have yet to see if we're actually streaming on YouTube or on Instagram. We're supposed to be. So we'll see if that's all working correctly. So please forgive us if there are any snafus or anything like that. This is all a learning process for me on the fly, and I want to welcome in Matt Conway for being and thank him for being my guinea pig here. Matt has been on the podcast before, but for those of you who are unfamiliar, Matt is an entertainment writer for Reminder Publishing here in Western Massachusetts. He is also the co-host of the Pop Culture Chats with Matt and Ryan podcast. And we love having Matt on to talk movies, especially. Of course, Matt is an aficionado of many other things, including food of all kinds and and of course the sports world. So Matt, if you wanted to take a minute to say hello to everybody and introduce yourself, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here live with the world. No, but I love coming on here because we usually talk a good mix of movies in Disney, but it's usually interesting fusions of the two. So before we did our college basketball brackets, our Pixar Disney challenge, that was a great episode. I highly recommend listeners go back to. But I really love movies. I mean, I go probably at least twice a week to the theater. It's like a habitual practice for me at this point. Even when there's movies I'm like 45 minutes into, like, I probably could have skipped this one, but I still plunge ahead. And, I think I've seen over, geez, it's got to be around 130 to 150 2024 releases this year. So I think
Wow.
I can speak from experience as far as, what's been good and what's been bad. There isn't a lot of big movies that have come out that I haven't had a chance to see.
All right. Well, thank you for being here and welcome. It seems like we are on YouTube. It doesn't seem that the Instagram is working at the moment, but we'll figure that out some other time. Thank
That's the
you to
Zuckerberg
those.
for you.
Come on, Zuck. Well, thank you very much for being here. We actually have a fun episode. We're going to be talking about basically the movies of this year. I had actually wanted to touch base with Matt about after the summer blockbuster season was over to get his thoughts on the hits and misses of the summer blockbuster season, but we just couldn't find the time that worked. So we're now, as the year is winding down, we're going to be talking about just more the year in general. There, as Matt has talked about before, there are kind of different stages of that every year the movies go through. There, do you want to kind of explain, as you've explained to me before, as a non-movie goer, how the year tends to go with movies?
Yeah, just like here in New England, the movie seasons often change. So the beginning of the year, January, February, that's typically where studios are. It's kind of like a dumping ground in a way. Of recent years, studios have been more keen to analyze these months to put out like maybe one or two big movies, but usually it's pretty quiet. March and April, things kind of heat up. We get a good mix of blockbusters, some kind of mid-adult, mid-budget movies. And then May comes, summer movie season. It's blockbusters every weekend. Big animated movies like Inside Out 2 and whatever new Despicable Me movie there was. And then once we reach August, as we're getting close to school, that late August, September window is kind of this interesting hodgepodge period where, similar to January, it's the studios kind of dumping out things they don't think would do well. And then October marks the kickoff for Oscar season. We have a lot of art house movies that start in limited release in these platforms and then gradually reach a wide audience. So it's really exciting, especially with the holidays coming up. I know we have a lot of big movies: Gladiator 2, Wicked, new Lion King, new Sonic the Hedgehog, The Brutalist. So a lot of good things coming out. But we're going to talk about today some of the great and some of the not so great movies that have come out so far.
Yeah, maybe we should have waited a little bit longer until some of those holiday movies came out, but this is what fit in the schedule. So we'll just move right along. And before we get to the movies, um, we are going to tap into this week's Mazza's Mickey Minute, which will have a Muppet theme to it.
Donald, wake up! It's showtime! Don't forget the orchestra.
Ah, there you are. And just in time.
Mom says there's even more magical stuff now.
For those of you standing, please hold on to the handrails throughout our journey and stay clear of the doors.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, cause this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
And here we go!
All right. And this week's Mazza's Mickey Minute, of course, we are approaching the holiday season, which means that we are going to be able to respectably, without people judging too much, watch the best Christmas movie ever made, which is The Muppet Christmas Carol. So with that in mind, I thought that this would be a fun exercise of looking at some other movies that could use a Muppet refresh. So we are going to do a Muppet Mazza's Mickey Minute this week.
It's time to play the music. It's time to light the light. It's time to meet the Muppets on the Muppet Show tonight.
It's time to put on makeup. It's time to dress up.
I just love any opportunity to play the Muppet Show theme. So there you go. Yeah,
I love
that's
the
the entire
salads.
purpose for that. That's the entire purpose for this entire segment, was just so that I could play that.
The intro for your minute, I think, is so great. All the blend of kind of Disney noises. It reminds me of when I'm at Disney, and it's about like 6 o'clock, and I'm exhausted, and I just close my eyes on a ride and just kind of get taken by all the noise of everything. That kind of peaceful moment of tranquility in between all the running around. Very well edited. I loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So basically, for this, I took about 25 different movies, most of them considered, quote unquote classics or popular. Not all of the popular movies in life have been classics. I mean, let's face it, Home Alone made how much money? But so, and then I put those 25 in a randomizer and got 5 that we are going to go through. We've had a few. We basically had a list of the main characters of those movies and how we would cast them. But one member of each cast is going to remain human. So the first that we had was the Avengers. Now, how would you like to do this? Would you like each of us to do our full rundown, or do we want to go through each character and compare?
Let's do our full rundown of each and then compare. So I can let you go first for the Marvels, the Avengers.
No, I'm going to let guest go first.
All right, very nice. Well, I got and I will admit, so a few of these, the Jurassic Park and the Avengers, I let my girlfriend do. I always do the celeb shot on our show with Ryan, where I let a guest, and my girlfriend loves the Muppets, so I said, help me out with a couple of these. So the Avengers is one she did help me with. For Tony Stark, Iron Man, we got Gonzo. For Captain America, Kermit. For Thor, Thozzy. For Hulk, Sweetums. For Natasha, Miss Piggy. Nick Fury, the great Samuel L. Jackson. Cliff Barton, the Swedish Chef. And Loki, Peppy. I really love this casting, especially with Samuel L. Jackson being kind of the gravitas to hold the cast together. And I just think Kermit as Captain America is perfect. Just that value and that embrace of doing what's right. I just think that's a great match.
All right. So you and I both had Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury for this one. So that's one that we're seeing eye to eye. I also had Peppy for Loki. so we've got a couple of things that we're in sync here. I had Rizzo for Tony Stark. I feel like he could he could definitely have that sarcasm element to that character. Captain America, Sam Eagle.
Oh, perfect. Patriotism.
I had Gonzo as Thor. And I kind of had who's someone who flies, and of course Gonzo with his cannon trick is pretty much one of the signature flyers of the Muppets. So for the Hulk, I actually split this. So when it's Dr. Banner, it's Kermit. And for Hulk, it's Animal. So Kermit transforms into Animal. Natasha Romanoff was Miss Piggy, of course. So I had a hard time with Clint Barton, so I just went with something a little ridiculous. I went with Lou Zealand. Do you know who that is?
Not off the top of my head. That's a great deep cut.
So Lou Zealand is this guy. His whole act is he's this guy who has the boomerang fish. So you throw the fish away, it comes back to me. And so basically, instead of being an archer, this character throws the boomerang fish. I don't know exactly how. And this is kind of crossing over, it's all Muppets, but it's not necessarily Muppet Show. But if there's somehow you can work Super Grover into this, I don't know how, but if you were able to wedge that in, I just feel like that would be gold.
I love the Animal Hulk and the dual personality angle, because I could totally see Kermit as mild-mannered Bruce Banner, sitting at it with his lab coat. And then he turns into a wild animal. I love that. That's perfect casting.
All right. So the next one that we had was Return of the Jedi. I'll go first on this one. So
sounds good.
For Luke Skywalker, I've got Scooter. Han Solo, I've got Kermit. And Princess Leia is Miss Piggy. Lando Calrissian is Fozzie Bear. Jabba the Hutt, instead of being just one character, is Statler and Waldorf. Darth Vader is himself. That's the human character. The Emperor is Uncle Deadly. And I also had a bonus one in here for just if we had the pigs in space as the stormtroopers.
I like that. It's very funny. We have the same human character again. I did Darth Vader as well for my human character. But I had for Luke Skywalker, I did Kermit, a man of good virtues. Han Solo, Dr. Teeth. I like the charisma, a little wild card kind of element there. Princess Leia, Miss Piggy. Lando, I also did Fozzie. I did split up Statler and Waldorf. I did Jabba, Statler, and then Waldorf as the Emperor. And then Darth Vader, I kept the same.
All right. So moving on, we next have Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Now, this is one of the ones you got an assist on?
Yes, I did get the alley-oop assist from my girlfriend on this. So she had Alan Grant, Kermit, Ellie Sattler, Miss Piggy, John Hammond. She did Statler and Waldorf. I like the combo. Ian Malcolm. I just always think of Jeff Goldblum. They should have just called his character that. Gonzo. Dennis Nedry, Rizzo, Lex and Tim. Now this is an interesting one. She said Electric Mayhem, but only Janice and Floyd Pepper make it off the island. Animal thrives. And then the character, she kept the same. This is horrible. The tourists / employees, humans. Oh no. Well, at least the Muppets are gonna make it safe through the movie. That at least warms my heart.
Oh man. Okay, so for this one, I had I tried to mix it up a little bit. There were some of the obvious choices. Like I honestly, you could put really Kermit and Miss Piggy as the main characters in most things, you know.
Mhm.
So I was trying to mix it up a little bit, and so for Jurassic Park, I've got Gonzo as Alan Grant, Camilla the chicken as Ellie Statler, because of course they're a couple.
Yeah.
Rizzo as John Hammond. I also had Jeff Goldblum maintaining his role as Ian Malcolm. I had Beaker as Dennis Nedry. For the kids, Lex and Tim, I had Robin, who's Kermit's nephew, and Bean Bunny. Do you know Bean
Yes,
Bunny?
of
Okay.
course. I remember them from the Muppets 3D special. A scene stealer. With his
All right.
little,
I also threw a couple of extras, some bonus ones in there. For Doctor Wu, I had Dr. Bunsen Honeydew, and for the T-Rex in the especially in the car scene where it's raining and everything like that, I had Sweetums. Like imagine instead of the T-Rex, Sweetums comes out from the trees.
I love that. I think that's perfect. So next we have the Matrix. I did
Yes.
for Neo. I did Pepe. I think he's got some agile movements in there. You know, he can do some of that slow mo bullet time effects. For Morpheus, I'm keeping Lawrence Fishburne to do his thing. For Trinity, I did Janice, kind of a hit. She's not really a hippie in the movie, but free spirited, free thinking. Anti-establishment. I thought that was a good fit. And then this is maybe my favorite casting out of all the ones is Sam the Eagle as Agent Smith. I could just totally see him being that kind of presence who's, I am not going to stop until I catch Neo, and just going from point A to point B. And I would just love to see a little old Pepe fight like 10 Sam the Eagles. That would be quite the movie-going experience.
All right, so this one I played a little bit more straight with the main character. For Neo, I had Kermit. Trinity, I had Miss Piggy. I had Sam Eagle for Morpheus. I just think Morpheus kind of has that more stoic kind of way about him, basically throughout. Yeah, I kept Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith. And it's funny that you mentioned Janice, because as a bonus one, I saw Janice as the Oracle.
Oh, very nice. I love that one too. I love how analytical your picks are. Like I feel like there's like almost an equation to how you nailed.
I spent too much time on this.
So
All
next
right.
up is Die Hard. I'll let you go first.
All right. So for Die Hard, I again had Kermit in the main role as John McClane. I kept Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber. Miss Piggy as Holly Gennaro. I had Rolf as Sergeant Al Powell. I decided to do an anti-yuppie thing here, and so Scooter is Ellis.
Oh, very nice.
And the FBI agents Johnson are Gonzo and Rizzo. I also had a couple of bonus ones that I threw in here. For the news reporter Dick Thornburg, I had the Swedish Chef. And for a couple of the terrorists, I felt like Animal had to be one of the terrorists. Oh. And Crazy Harry, of course, the demolitions expert, has to be one of the terrorists.
I definitely cannot top those picks. I did just the main three characters for Die Hard. I got John McClane. You got to get Gonzo in there. Someone who's going to go out there, lay his body on the line, do whatever it takes. I could totally see him looking all rattled, kind of like how John McClane looks at the end of the movie. So I got that. For Hans, I did Sam the Eagle. See, I know he's Mr. America, but let's kind of just change his nationalism to a different nation, and it's that same kind of energy. So that's kind of where I was thinking. And
it's kind of like it's kind of like in Muppet Christmas Carol, where he's just like, it's the British way.
Exactly. There's that untapped potential. He can be, committed and converted, And then I did Miss Piggy for Holly. I left Alan Powell and Ellis Blank. I've only seen Die Hard once. I got to get some rewatches in. I got to join you and get it in my annual Christmas watch list.
Yeah. For those who don't know, it's actually my Christmas tradition is sometime when Eileen and Megan are out of the house, I get out all of the stuff that I need to wrap, crack open a beer, and put on Die Hard, and that's what I watch while I'm wrapping presents. So it's become quite the tradition. So, okay, so if anybody has any critiques of our picks or wants to make some of their own for any of these, you can certainly connect with us on any of the social medias, and also you can send them directly to me at mazasmusings@gmail.com. This was a fun exercise. It's of course a longer Mazza's Mickey Minute than we're used to, but I thought that was fun. So thank you to the Muppets for providing hours of entertainment and for a little bit of inspiration for this segment. So
I think Disney's going to take some notes from this. We might be getting some royalty checks, I think. Some of these movies get greenlit.
We can only hope. Well, yeah, because, hey, they haven't figured out how to do anything with the Muppets.
Honestly.
But now let's get me started. Why don't you get me started? It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, motivational. This is what we call the Muppet Show.
Here it comes. All right. Well, you mentioned it before, but you are, of course, a big Disney fan.
Of course. I have to be dating my girlfriend, or else
Well, I think that you can appreciate that taking a trip to the Disney parks can be a little bit, especially the planning, can be a bit of a daunting experience, correct?
Oh, of course. And I'm more in like the passenger role of that, but getting to see it firsthand, planning the days, the hotels, all that. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job.
Well, the good thing is everybody can kind of be a passenger in that, because if you work with a travel agent like We Do Travel Right, they can take care of all of that stuff for you. So all you have to do is worry about having fun on your vacation. How does that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Well, here's what it'll sound even better. All of their services are also free.
It's a price I can afford.
Yeah, because, well, Disney and Universal and cruise lines and all-inclusive resorts, they build the prices of using an agent into their costs. And like what you pay them, that's already included. So whether you use an agent or not, you're paying for an agent. So We Do Travel Right can offer you like the dining team and one-on-one agent support. And they can also set you up with study halls and seminars and things like that, so you can get the most out of your trip. And it's all coming to you without an extra dollar coming out of your pocket, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. So the next time you and your girlfriend are planning a Disney trip, maybe you should give We Do Travel Right a try. You can get a free vacation quote by going to wedotravelright.com/Mazza. That's wedotravelright.com/MAZA. And they can help you get your magical Disney vacation started as soon as today.
Why do I feel like she's going to hear this and just, I'm going to get hit with the surprise booking next week? Get the, hey, we're going in March. Or
It's all part of the plan, man. It's all part of the plan.
I love it.
Well, I can't do any more damage around this popsicle stand.
So long, partner.
See you real soon.
Yes, we will, Mickey, but not soon enough. Our next trip is in February, and it cannot get here fast enough. All right, so moving on to our main topic. We have, well, I haven't because I haven't seen many movies this year, quite honestly, but Matt has seen some of the best, some of the worst, and some of the straight up unwatchable movies of 2024. So, Matt, I'm going to ask a very simple question to start. Were there any movies that I'm going to start with the bad, with the terrible right off the top? Were there any movies that you are just like, I can't be here. I can't watch this. This is unwatchable in 2024.
Yeah, I think the worst of the worst for me has to be Back to Black. This was a music biopic about Amy Winehouse. And if you've read any of my reviews at Reminder Publishing, I often just sulk about how bad music biopics are for numerous reasons. A, they follow a very like cookie cutter kind of Wikipedia, format where they're hitting these kind of broad strokes, but there's no detail or really nuance to what's going on screen. And then number two, you often have these kind of characters involved who want to shape the person and their perspective and what people think about them based on their views and not the actual person. So Back to Black, that is definitely an instance of that. Amy Winehouse, very talented jazz musician, obviously a very tragic story. She passed at 27, but the movie is produced by her husband and then her ex boyfriend are both involved. If you know about the kind of real life tabloid situations there, they were not the most supportive figures during her life, but the movie kind of recontextualizes her ultimate rise and fall in a way that just feels really insincere, and it feels like you're just trying to spin it to kind of save face a little bit. The lead actress does a very good job,
or make
but
money.
yeah, exactly. And it's just like, and the thing is, this movie did horrible because anyone who likes Amy Winehouse saw right away, like, wow, this is in really bad taste, and no one saw it. And there's also a documentary about Amy Winehouse that came out in like 2015 that like hits upon like the real facts elements of this and how both of those people were pretty nefarious presences in her life. And now they're shaping it into fit it so it's like, she's at fault. She's the tragic, failure. And it's just really weird. And a lot of these music biopics, let's just hold pause on. I know there's a Bob Dylan one that is coming out too that doesn't look that good, but it's a money train that Hollywood keeps coming back to, and I'm getting more sick of it by the year.
No, remind me, you were down on Bohemian Rhapsody too as well. Were you not?
Oh yeah, I was not a fan. I can't believe that's one of the most painful things for me. I don't really care about the Oscars usually, but man, the fact that Bradley Cooper lost that year when The Star Is Born, he was just so good. I remember he sang all his own songs. He made like a whole album with Lady Gaga. And then the guy, Rami Malek, who's a good actor. This is no diss to him, but everything he lip synced and stuff. It's like, wait, so the guy who lip syncs gets the Oscar, but the guy who's writing songs and singing them and doing all this and that doesn't. That really, ugh, that still gets my blood boiling today thinking about that Oscars. But yeah, there's just they can't crack the formula with these music biopics. There's very few that are worthwhile or interesting.
All right. So now we are. Do you want to end on the positive note, or do you want to, after starting off on the worst possible note, do you want to bump it right back up to positive?
Yeah, let's keep reveling in the trash that Hollywood produced this year. So I did kind of little categories for each section. So I did two categories for worst movies. First is What a Letdown. These are like kind of the biggest disappointments for me this year. And I had three that came to mind. Alien Romulus. I love Alien. I think it's a great franchise, and I do credit the director Fede Alvarez for really capturing the 80s aesthetic. You have all these kind of analog computers, and it really captures the world of Alien very well. And I like that the franchise goes back to the horror roots, but there's nothing there narratively for this to really exist. It really just recycles elements of the original films without any kind of interesting trademarks. And the story just feels very lifeless, and there's all those kind of weird Disney, Hollywood decisions where it's like, oh, we have the actor who's dead, who's brought back to life through CG in the movie, and I continue to not understand why that's done. It's just a weird practice in my book, but
See, I thought that when they did that in Rogue One, it was kind of like mind blowing, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought that it fit with that story because you needed, you kind of needed that Tarkin character, um, but at the same time, I feel like now they're doing it with everything. They've got this shiny new toy, and they can't put it down.
that's the thing is like that character in Rogue One, it was indispensable. Like he had to be a presence in the movie, but the character they bring back in this movie, it felt a little more forced. And it's this kind of thing that, I think Hollywood is falling into the cycle of, it's like fan service. Oh, it's something you recognize. Like it's supposed to just like capture your interest. They're saying, oh, I recognize that. It's like, wow. It's like looking at something on a window, like window shopping. It's like, oh, but that's something that catches your attention for a brief second. And then you have to go back to, okay, well, what's the story? What's the characters? What's here? And ultimately, it's not much. So Alien, I was let down by. The other is another Disney Fox reboot, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I really love the Planet of the Apes movies because they're so socially conscious, and I think they really reflect on, human divide and kind of class warfare and a lot of interesting topics with, thought and nuance. But this movie, I think, really threw that away. There just wasn't the same thematic grasp and just angle to it. And I really wish there was just more direction to this. It felt similar to Alien, where it was just kind of leeching off what its predecessors had done rather than kind of establishing its own new voice. And then my last letdown.
Well, and before you get to that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this was one that I remember when we spoke, when I asked you to say what are you really looking forward to this summer. This was the one that came top of mind. So this must have been a real letdown for you.
Oh, most definitely. And it's tough too because the Andy Serkis trilogy that came out in the 2010s, those are all phenomenal movies. And I think they really, in a way, recontextualized the 70s movies, but also maintained the heart of that series. And this, it feels just kind of a little wayward and like there wasn't really an identity there. But my last one, Venom: The Last Dance. I'm one of probably the only people who actually likes the first two Venom movies. I thought they were goofy, insincere in their own kind of quirky way, and I thought Tom Hardy was really it's really like a Chaplin-esque comedic performance, and you wouldn't expect that in a superhero movie. But this movie, it felt so lifeless. There was no funny moments. It kind of seemed hacked to bits in post-production. That visually looked terrible. The B plot, the backstory with the villain, all that stuff was so disposable. Felt like it was on the Sci-Fi Channel or something. But I don't know what went wrong with this movie. It seems like everything did. But next section, this is the worst of the worst. And I have two of them are categories and one's a movie. So one category, horrible horror. As you may know, Chris, it's like there's horror movies coming out every week now, and it's because they're cheap to make, and they almost rarely don't turn a profit. If it even makes a couple million, usually studios get some return. But
right
with that, we had a lot of stinkers. Strangers Chapter 1, Imaginary. Both these movies, I was like close to falling asleep during. I remember I was just. Those reclining seats now, they're so comfortable. If the movie's not working, I might, go to nap mode. And these ones kind of tested that patience. Just no creativity, no vibrancy, no interesting kills or interesting ideas, just nothing to it. The movie Kinds of Kindness. Now, this is from Yorgos Lanthimos, a guy who's made a lot of great movies. The Lobster, not Kinds of Kindness, The Favorite. Some great movies, but this movie is like a 2 hour plus torture exercise. Basically, reeks.
Is it a torture exercise on screen, or is it a torture exercise for everybody sitting in the audience?
Honestly, both. And the movie's very intentional in that, and in a way I respect it. It reeks of masochism and is just so dark and vile. Like this is definitely the movie of the year. I would not recommend to your like parents or anyone who would not want to see anything impure, because this movie is just insane. But even though
Is
there's
this like
so
the 2024 Human Centipede?
Oh yeah, honestly, this is kind of like the art house Human Centipede in a way, because I do think Yorgos has some interesting ideas of kind of wrestling with human detachment, but there was just not enough there to carry the movie, and it has this kind of three act structure, and none of the acts really worked in unison, and I just thought it became insufferable after a while. It's like 150 minutes by hour, 90 minutes in. I'm like, all right, are we done yet? Are we done? And it just keeps going on and on and on and on. I'm getting, to the point in my life where it's like, is this worth my time? With some of these movies. And this is the movie this year that definitely, I think, tested that the most.
Now, have you walked out of a theater? Like,
not by my choice.
For a reason other than like a fire alarm or something like that.
Not by my choice. I've been to the movies with friends sometimes, and my friends just complain over and over again, and it's like, all right, fine, we'll go. Usually you do like double features in the past. I remember the funniest one. Do you remember the Wrinkle in Time movie that came out a few years ago?
Yes.
I went to see that with my friends, and like 20 minutes in, one of my friends is like, I hate this. Can we leave? I'm like, it's getting good. It's getting good. I want to sit with this a bit. Ava DuVernay is a great director. Let's see where this goes. And then like 45 minutes in, he's like, come on, can we please go? Can we please? I'm like, no, come on, it's getting good. Let's see where this is going. And then like, with 20 minutes to go, he's like, Matt, I'll give you $30. Can we just please go? And I'm like, I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, no, I want to see the end of this. And it's so funny. It's that movie because it got horrible reviews and everything, but I kind of liked it, But my last worst of the worst category, I feel like I do this every year. I call it the streaming poo-poo platter. But this isn't a platter of tasty Chinese food appetizers. This is some of the horrible movies that come out on streaming services. They're like a factory because they just need eyeballs. They don't really need to win over your money. They already have you there. So it's like,
Right.
something that makes for an interesting poster. Oh, something that's an interesting concept. That's really all it takes to really engage with people. And a lot of these people just leave it on in the background while they're vacuuming their living room anyways. So the movies that came to mind for this, Atlas, it was this science fiction movie with Jennifer Lopez. She was actually getting some acting advice from Ben Affleck while filming it. Maybe
Is that why this all went south?
It is funny that their announcement came shortly after this movie came out, and maybe she was like, I need to get a better acting coach than Ben Affleck.
Or maybe it was that Dunkin' commercial.
Oh yeah, yeah, the one with the jerseys. Oh, no. Or the jumpsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough look. I love Matt Damon, but oof, that didn't look great. But some other streaming duds with the Roadhouse remake with Jake Gyllenhaal. He fights Conor McGregor for some reason. It's just such a bizarre movie, and it had none of the charm. Like even the original Roadhouse, it's not like a good movie, but it's kind of corny and earnest in its own way, and it's easy to
You can see why people like it.
Yeah, exactly. And you have someone like Swayze who's like a really magnetic presence who you're kind of just glued to. But Jake Gyllenhaal, you're fine and all, but he's not really like a movie star like that. And the movie's just really plotting and boring. And then Netflix, I feel like they're the king of bad movies. Like I think for every one good Netflix movie, there's like probably 6 that are horrible. Probably the worst one I watched is, you remember probably in the 2010s when there was like the Twilight movies and like the Twilight clones. It's like all these book adaptations.
Yeah.
Well, they did one called The Uglies, and it's about, and it was just so stupid. It was like, oh, if you don't get this surgery, you're gonna be ugly. But it's like, of course, everyone in the movie looks like they just came off a GQ photo shoot. So it's just this kind of weird Hollywood idea of things, and it just doesn't really articulate anything interesting, and it reminded me of something that would have came out like 15 years ago. So that's the worst of the worst, at least from my end of things.
All right, so what we've reached a low here, so bring us back up. What are some of the best movies that you've seen in 2024?
Yes, so my first category, it's not as bad as you think. These are my underrated movies. I feel like I'm the one who has to champion them. I'm pounding on the gavel saying, order, order. We need to defend these movies. The first one, you're going to laugh. You're not going to be surprised at all. Horizon, Chapter 1. My man Kevin Costner came out and cooked up a 3-hour Western that is this epic mosaic of the American experience in the 19th century, all of its joys and pains and despair and the advent of, manifest destiny. It's this really fascinating portrait. It really rides this kind of interesting gradient of genres. It feels sweeping. It feels like a old school Western adventure at times. It feels romantic at times. I saw this a few times in the theater and I just absolutely loved it. It was just a movie that few directors today would even try to direct. And I know it didn't do great at the box office, so I'm really hoping we get to see Chapter 2. And then he also has Chapter 3 and 4 planned coming in the years to come, hopefully. But yeah, I know he got divorced just to make that movie. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, and he may have to pony up more of his own money to see the rest of those made, from what I understand. Because with as badly as it did, I from what I understand, it may not. The second one, let alone the fourth one, may never see the light of day. Otherwise,
Yeah, the second one they were supposed to already come out in theaters, but it got pushed, so it's kind of on hold for now. But yeah, he also quit Yellowstone, which is like the biggest show on TV, to do this. So honestly, all those things I just greatly respect. I don't think there's enough people in Hollywood. There's so many people doing, grifting for paychecks. This is someone who just doesn't care, and this is like something they view as like a magnum opus, and they're like, whatever it takes to get this done, I'm getting it done. So I find that very admirable. And
it
my
it's
next
a little bit easier to take those giant leaps when you're Kevin Costner.
That is definitely true, but yeah, I give him credit. He's earned his status. And it's funny, the next film is very similar to that. Megalopolis. This was from Francis Ford Coppola. He emptied out all of his winery money to make this $120 million weird, futuristic kind of rumination on kind of, American greed and, our political dysfunction and this kind of merging of pop culture and politics into this weird flurry of things. This is a fascinating movie. It's very campy. It's kind of goofy. It reminds me a lot of like visually of like Batman Forever. It just looks very garish and bold. But there's a lot of like fun ideas to it. And I do think the all-star cast, you got Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito makes for a great villain here. Ultimately works. So it's one of those movies that's a little hokey, a little unwieldy, but the ideas of it and the moments that really click, I thought were really either very fun and interesting, but even at times very beautiful. I do think Francis Ford has an interesting lens on kind of the American experience and kind of the degradation of some things that are going on, at least in our culture. But yeah, another go for broke. He had all the money to spend. He emptied the bank account to get it done. The last underrated movie. This is for you, Trent Lavakis. Argyle, the Argyle Hive. We're a strong unit here. I don't get why everyone hated this movie.
Isn't that the one where he's water skiing on oil or something like that?
Yeah, Bryce Dallas Howard at the end. Yeah, she's water skiing on oil. No, this was a really fun kind of like Roger Moore 70s Bond vibe film. Matthew Vaughn, who did the Kingsman movie, brings a lot of that same visual kineticism and electricity behind the camera. It's the story is definitely a little wacky, a little convoluted, but at least spins a really fun kind of yarn. It's kind of like the kind of airplane novel that you might read during a trip. But I thought it was fun. It was very big and grand and original, at least. I know it's kind of based on an idea on a book, but it felt, fresh and interesting. So I give it credit for that. But as I mentioned, October is Oscar season. And there are two films that are kind of already establishing themselves as front runners that I really liked and I want to give a spotlight to. Have you heard of all about Conclave? I know this is a movie that's been getting a big push of late nationwide.
No, I have not heard of this at all.
Okay, so it is this very interesting movie. It's a fictional setting, reality and everything, but the Pope has passed away, and it's this... We follow the papacy as they have to kind of select the new pope. But as you can imagine, it turns into this kind of political, interesting situation where everyone has the candidate they're vying for. And it becomes an interesting examination of values and virtues and how those can often get condensed within political systems. And you have a really fantastic performance from Ralph Fiennes, who is kind of the arbiter of this process. And it turns into a movie that actually gets, I mean, it's really thoughtful and interesting at times, but it's also really funny because you get to see like the cattiness of these characters of, oh, I'm the candidate, and everyone's like talking bad about the other person behind their back. So I do think it is one of the best movies I've seen in a while to really capture some of the political nature of things, the beast that it can often be, and kind of the issues with that within a way. So I think that's going to be a big Oscar player.
Yeah,
The other,
as you started talking about that, that was it started to ring a bell. I've seen I've seen some publicity for that. I just didn't know what it was called. So clearly the publicity worked on me.
I think it's a movie that's interesting too, because you look at it at like first glance and you think it's going to be a little stuffy, maybe a little dry, kind of this kind of faux historical thing. But like I said, there is a lot of lively pulses to it, whether it's humor, whether it's this kind of thriller angle of the intensity of making these decisions. So I give the director, I think it's Edward Berger, a lot of credit for really imbuing a lot of intensity into this and elevating it to the next stratosphere. The other movie I want to shout out is Anora. This is about a call girl who's seeing this very affluent Russian boy, and he's the son of like a mob boss and everything. So all of a sudden, the two of them get married, and then the family comes into play saying, what is going on? And they do everything it takes to try to annul this. But this is kind of an interesting uh, I don't twist in a way of like kind of a Cinderella story where you have this character who dreams of making it to the big leagues and having a lavish life of luxury. But in this case, once our character gets there, we suddenly see them falling away from that plateau. So it's really interesting and thoughtful. But another movie similar to Conclave that has a great infusion of comedy. The last hour of this movie literally turns into this like screwball farce where characters are like tripping over themselves as they're looking for this drunk, petulant, spoiled brat of a kid who's kind of lost in the streets. So it's a really great movie for people who are looking for something with a little more real stakes to it, but also a little comedy. Very R-rated, I will warn that, but definitely a movie I liked a lot.
All right. So, we've talked a little bit about it, there still being some time before the end of the year. Is there anything else that you are just, I know the last time that I asked you this question it ended up being a huge letdown. So I hope I'm not a jinx on you here, but anything coming out during the holiday season that you are super amped about?
Yeah, I think for me, I'll do one like mainstream movie and one indie movie. The independent movie I'm most excited for is called The Brutalist. This is
Hmm.
from director Brady Corbett. Now, hear this, Chris. The runtime is 215 minutes. So this is a 3 hour and 35-minute movie. Buckle
Sounds
up,
right up your
baby.
alley.
Yeah, I love it. But it's this, how I've heard it described is it's this huge kind of historical epic where we follow this character kind of who migrates from Europe into the US and is trying to make a life for himself and gets kind of caught up with some nefarious characters. But Brady Corbett, his last movie was similarly very ambitious and grand, Vox Lux. I love directors who just take a home run swing behind the plate and really go for it. And this movie definitely seems to be doing that. And Adrian Brody, I heard, gives a phenomenal performance as well. So that would be my like indie, art house movie pick. My more general pick, and this is silly, I admit it. Sonic the Hedgehog 3, bring it on! I'm in. We got Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, that's great casting. But I think these movies have really been able to crack the video game curse, video game movie curse that's been going on forever. They really captured the vitality and exuberance of these characters. but include some kind of modern infusions that make things fun. They're just great. I wouldn't even say great. They're very good, family movies, good kind of crowd pleaser, escapism, and I think it's going to play like gangbusters over the Christmas season.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for this for that rundown of the best, the worst, and the downright unwatchable of 2024, and of course our Maz's Mickey Minute, which was all about recasting the movies with the Muppets. And by the way, you showed me, but can you show everybody what you're wearing today, or am I putting you on the spot?
No, of course. I'm very proud to. So every year, my girlfriend and I get holiday sweaters to wear on Christmas. This is the one of this year. We got Kermit. It seems like kind of like an Ebenezer Scrooge hat vibe going on there. But yeah. Oh, I love it.
Very nice, very nice.
This is like the production values of like a Christopher Nolan movie right now. I'm floored. It's amazing.
I've just got a bunch of toys that I'm playing with here, so Well, thank you very much. If you want to let people know how they can listen to more of you and of course your co-host Ryan, or how they can find you, now is the time, and go ahead and fire away.
Yeah, so me and my friend Ryan Fair, we have a show, Pop Culture Chats with Ryan and Matt. You can find it on all your podcast services. We have some exciting things planned post Thanksgiving break, some interesting different podcast ideas, and hopefully we'll get our good friend Chris Mazza on very soon as well. You can also find some of my arts and cultures comments or columns on the Reminder Publishing on the website or through their weekly editions. Do a lot of food, a lot of movies, a lot of games, went to the Celtics, BC Eagles, all that fun stuff.
I did enjoy that you were able to work Kelly Olynyk into into the legends of the Celtics in your last column.
Game 7 hero right there. Never forget.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Matt, you can feel free to stick around while I say my goodbyes, or if you want to kick off, that's totally up to you. But thank you again, and yeah, we'll have to circle back and do some more stuff. I've told you a couple of ideas that I have rolling around. It's just a matter of finding the time to. I've got so many ideas and just not enough time to wrangle people to get them all done. So we'll definitely have to have you back on soon.
Sounds good. A pleasure and privilege as always. And I know we'll have a great show eventually with the great Mike Dobbs. We'll get in a nice little round table going there.
That sounds great. Yeah, that's one of the ideas that I had that just, we never were able to make it work. So yeah. Hopefully in the near future.
Very good.
All right. And that will just about wrap this episode of the Maz's Musings podcast. Again, I want to thank Matt for joining us, and I want to thank you, those of you who joined this live stream. It will also be on all the various platforms that you otherwise would listen to the podcast. I'm not sure how soon that will happen, but hopefully as soon as possible. But at the very latest, it'll be up on all of those by Friday. I also want to take the time to thank everybody who has sent in comments on social media, everybody who has sent emails. It's all great stuff. You can connect with me on social media on Facebook at the Maz's Musings Podcast. We are also on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at Maz's Musings Pod. We're also doing some stuff on TikTok at Maz's Musings Podcast. We have also just recently joined Blue Sky, so you can find us there as well. All of these things you can find on our link tree, which is linktr.ee/Maz's Musings. You can also find all this information on our website, mazsmusings.wordpress.com. And you can connect with us there, find out more about the podcast, listen to past episodes, And yeah, it's just a great resource for everything to do with the Maz's Musings podcast, including signing up for the Maz's Musings podcast newsletter, which went out today and let everybody know that we were doing this live recording. So feel free to sign up for that as well. We'd much appreciate it. And as always, we want to ask you if you would be interested in buying us a blue milk to help us with some of the small monetary costs that we have associated with this podcast. Even if you are not interested in helping monetarily, a big help to us is sharing the podcast, telling your friends, interacting with us on social media, giving us a like, comment, review, or a rating on whatever podcatcher you're using. There are different ways to do it depending on where you are. We really enjoy Good Pods, which allows you to make comments and get into conversation on specific episodes. Spotify has also started doing this as well, so you can check that out as well. Some of our past episodes actually even have polls attached to them if you go onto the Spotify app and listen that way. So again, thank you to everybody who has been listening to this podcast, who joined us live today. I think that this actually went about as well as it possibly could have. I want to again thank Matt, because none of this would have happened without him and his willingness to come on the podcast and really be my guinea pig. So, as I always say during every live show or recorded show, I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. And happy Thanksgiving.